If you find yourself inheriting $1 million, you best start becoming a millionaire. And what that means is that just because you have $1 million does not mean you're a millionaire, because you're not going to think like a millionaire. A millionaire thinks very different than somebody who just gets $1 million. A millionaire immediately thinks, like, if I was given $1 million, I immediately think of, oh crap, I'm gonna have tax. So how am I going to shelter this from tax? How am I going to avoid taxes in a legal way? My 3 favorite books of all time, I think, when it comes to like being successful. First one I tell everybody all the time is Rework by Jason Fried and David Hanna Hansen, the guys who created Basecamp. That book single-handedly helped build my business the way it is. I think ultimately it won't build you, for the most part, depends on your business, but it might not get you to like big business status, but it'll get you to where you are comfortable. You are making a lot of money from your business. It's no nonsense. Each chapter is its own like silo. Like, you don't have to even read the whole book. You can read chapter by chapter, but each chapter is like absolutely amazing. So like one chapter is like probably my favorite. It's called Embrace Constraints. Essentially, the chapter says, I've probably listened to it like hundreds of times, because it's always a reminder that I should enjoy the constraint that I have, because it'll help me to be more creative. So the reason why a sonnet is a sonnet, or a haiku is a haiku, is because a haiku has to have a certain form. You can't say something's a haiku poem unless it's done in a certain way. You can't say something's a sonnet unless it's done in a certain way. And so within that constraint, you then can create beautiful, beautiful things. Okay? A constraint for you might be you're a one-person show. So now you're going to start thinking, because in the beginning, it's fine. You have one client, that's fine, being one person, but then you have 5 clients. Now you have to start thinking, okay, this is my constraint. It's me right now. I can either automate with software, I can either change my pricing, I can change this, I can change that. You start becoming creative because of that constraint, because of the pain that you're feeling. Don't look at it as like a negative. Look at it as a positive, because it's only going to make the most that you can do with that constraint. It's going to make it to where when you get out of that constraint to the next one, you're going to have the best like setup for the next one, and then the best setup for the next one, and so on and so on.
So looking at it as a way to, or a sign to evolve, expand, adapt, not oh shit, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. Or this sucks. Like, why couldn't I be like Dean and have hundreds of people working for me? And dude, I started with one person. Yeah, and then I went from one person to 5 people, and then I went from 5 people to 50. Then I went from, not that fast. Like, every little constraint brings treasures that you wouldn't otherwise do. So, for example, I had to let somebody go who handles all of our payroll type stuff, and I'm doing it now. And that is a huge constraint for me, because I went from not having to do really anything to getting into the nuts and bolts of my business. I could say, oh, this freaking sucks and I need to find someone else to do this or whatever. But during this process, I found that there were things that we were doing in that process that were costing about $3,000 a month in expenses, like, that didn't need to be there. like literally wasted, just 3,000 out the door every month, not doing it, not for no reason. I'll share with you later what it is privately, but 3,000 a month, just boop, 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 going nowhere to, other than to a software company that we didn't even need to have that happen. On top of that, it changed how we do our performance reviews. It changed how when I change payroll, how I can do things in bulk, because I'm like doing it one by one. I'm like, this sucks. So now I get to figure out how to do it in bulk. So now that creates a better system to be able to just go from hours of work to minutes of work. Things like that. Like the constraints, embracing the constraints that you have bring about so much creativity that a lot of people, we're taught to avoid that. So Rework's one. Second is psycho-cybernetics, or something similar, but psycho-cybernetics, like everything, you can't, Jim Rohn has a cool saying of, if you find yourself inheriting $1 million, you best start becoming a millionaire. And what that means is that just because you have $1 million does not mean you're a millionaire, because you're not going to think like a millionaire. A millionaire thinks very different than somebody who just gets $1 million. A millionaire immediately thinks, like if I was given $1 million, I immediately think of, oh crap, I'm gonna have tax. So how am I going to shelter this from tax? How am I going to avoid taxes in a legal way, right? So I'm going to invest it. What am I going to invest it in? For me, it would probably be real estate, okay? Because then I can leverage a certain amount of real estate so that it's over $1 million that I have in real estate, because I can depreciate over $1 million if I take out loans on this stuff, and then I'll buy some outright that'll pay for the debt service of those properties, and I'll have like cash flow coming in from those, plus I'll have tax write-offs for like years, plus I can set up another corporation and have my daughter or someone be a real estate professional, quote unquote, who's managing those properties, and now she gets tax write-offs from her job, I get tax write-offs from her as well, and to where I pay almost zero taxes. Like, that does not compute to somebody who has been working a full-time job, doing what everyone else does, gets $1 million, they're like, sweet, I'm gonna go buy a Ferrari, that's it, yeah. And then they lose half of it to taxes, you know? So psycho-cybernetics is great because it focuses on who you become, who you are. The more that you can become that higher level person, then the sky's the limit. Like, if I lost everything right now, I know exactly what I would do to get it all back quickly. Most people don't. Like, they get laid off and it's like, oh crap, what do I do? So the more that you can become somebody of value, somebody of financial intelligence, somebody of like resourcefulness, or art, and this is just in business, maybe you want to be a musician or whatever, the more that you become that person, the more that you see yourself as that person, the more it'll actually happen. And then last book, third book, what would be the third book? Because there's so many out there that are like so good. I'd probably say The Way of the Superior Man. I don't know if you've read that yet. Have you read that? That one, so David Deida, D-E-I-D-A, I think it's, you know, especially in America, if you get married, or if you live with somebody for a long time, I think, depending on the state that you're in, you can be in a common law marriage, you can lose half of everything that you have. like that as a man that you worked for. I was very lucky with who I married. And I'm saying lucky not in the sense of like, I mean, yeah, she's amazing. But who I was, I could have easily attached myself to somebody who could have just destroyed my life. The lack of confidence, inferiority complex, all this other stuff, imposter syndrome. The way of the superior man is a kind of, it's not everything in, I don't espouse there, I don't believe everything that he talks about in there or hold to everything he talks about, but it's a way of becoming a man that has options, a man that is like purpose driven, a man that is that knows the type of woman to settle down with. The more that you can become that type of guy, a guy who, like he talks about things like, for example, knowing your limits, knowing your edge, and then like riding your edge of what you're comfortable in. Like for me, just that little edge of going to the gym and recording, a lot of nervousness. So, like with you, like I even, I was vulnerable enough to say, hey, that makes me nervous to just that time of year. But now that's my edge. The edge, the way that we fixed that was, let's go tonight when there's not a lot of people there and it's people that you don't really know, right? So then, boom, because you remember even here, it was very nerve-wracking for me. First time I was like, right? Now it's just like, whatever. Who cares? Like nobody really cares anyway. Most people are like, oh, I wonder what they're doing. So, knowing your edge, but living on that edge. That edge is what gives you life as a man. Like how am I going to get my next client? How am I going to? One client just left me. What am I going to do? Like part of you is like, shit, why am I doing this? But then the other part is like, this is freaking cool, especially when you have a victory. So things like that. But then on top of that is like your relationship with your friends, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your woman. And what does that mean? And that book is really good at giving you the reality of how women are, giving you the reality of how men are. And like, when you know that's how women are, like when you understand something's nature, you're not going to get mad at it. Like if my wife, tests me and like is trying and is like doing stuff that is like pissing me off, I know that that's a test, and that's what women do. And so when that happens, it's like, oh, okay. No, I'm not going to get emotional. No, okay. Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to go work out. Or I might even just be like, all right, yeah, I'm not dealing with this. I'm going to go work out when she doesn't like me working out, which is in the evening, going like closer to 11 o'clock because it freaks her out. I'm like, oh, okay, you want to do that? Okay, then you want to play? Then I'm going to go do what I want right now. Things like, it teaches you to really truly own your masculinity and how to navigate the whole masculine world so that you don't get screwed in the Western world. Because if you build all this stuff and you're with the wrong person, or you don't lay expectations out in the beginning with the right person, you run a huge risk. And I'm not trying to say that to be Debbie Downer, but I've just seen, like, in my family, not my family, like my extended family, my friends, I just see it happen a lot. Divorces, things like that, and it just goes sideways all the time. And plus, I see people that I care about, men who I care about, just become fat, lazy, become like they become a shell of a man because of stuff like that,
They become
victim minded, exactly,
So those are the 3 books?
I would say those 3. You read those, and like everything comes down to like knowing who you are, becoming like the best version of yourself. But then like taking action, like that's why rework is so good. It's not like a business book, like here, learn to sell, learn this, whatever. It's like very cut and dry and simple. A lot of it's just be courageous, take action, and pivot. Be courageous, take action, pivot. And those 3 books give you that.
What were the other books that you were thinking of for the 3rd one?
I read a lot, dude. If you're in your car, every once in a while is fine. But if you're in your car listening to music, I'm just saying, like you have such a treasure trove now. What goes into your mind is what's going to come out. So trust me, I love music. I grew up with for me, it's Linkin Park, Incubus, it's Seven Dust. I like older, like rockish type music. But if that's all you're listening to, you're not, like, you're either gonna just parrot what they're saying in life or whatever, or you're not gonna get anywhere. Like, you literally have hours a day to learn from the best of the best. Like every freaking, like whether it's Mark Cuban or Marcus Lemonis or whoever writes a book, like these are billionaires who are sharing their knowledge with you for like $15. It's nuts not to be reading, dude. How much? So I get 3 credits a month for Audible. It's like 30-something bucks, and I get to learn from the best of the best. So I'm always listening to audiobooks. Always listen. I don't listen to podcasts so much because it really depends. I'll get hooked onto one guy until I get tired of him, and then I'll move on to the next and the next. But like podcasts and podcast interviews, you have to be really careful because you don't really know. To me, with books, you're getting like a concentrated instruction manual from that one person, because they have to be concise, they have to give action points, they have to give like something good, or else they're not going to get published and it's not going to do well. Podcasts, they can go on and they can just talk and talk and talk about whatever they want, right? So like an Audible book, you know you're going to get something that you can take action on. I was listening to this completely side note, like kind of antithetical to what I'm saying. I was listening to a guy named Hamza, Hamza. He's a young guy who's doing really well, a YouTuber. I shared one of his videos with you. Well, he had this recent video called The 4 Habits of Wealthy People, and they're 100% true. But one of the habits is that they don't read a lot. It sounds weird. They read a lot, but they don't read a lot. It's really how they read. So when I'm listening to an audiobook or I'm reading a book, and I'm not saying like I'm wealthy like Jeff Bezos or anything like that, but this has always been a habit of mine, and I didn't realize that this is what others do that are wealthy as well. They will listen or read the book, they'll find something in it, and then immediately they'll take action. They don't even have to finish the book yet, but they'll take action on it. So I'll be driving my car and I'll be listening to, let's say, One-Page Marketing Plan is a book, and he says something about having story-based emails, at least 7 of them up front. This is not what's in the book, but I'm just giving an example. And I'm like, and something clicks in me, and I'm like, oh, you know what? That's a great idea. I will turn it off. If I'm driving, I'll keep listening maybe, or I'll turn it off and send myself a note, or I'll tell Gonzalo, tell one of my guys or whomever, and just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I think we should do 7 story-based emails. Can we have the VSAs create 7 story-based email drafts, and then I'll look over them and see if they're, if they're good, and then we'll put them into a sequence or whatever. Like, that's how fast. So how you read, it should not just be sitting there for 3 hours then putting it away. Oh, that was a really good book, I got out a lot of it. It should be reading, something pops in your head and it's like, whoa, crap, I need to do that now. All the time. Like, that is a trait that will get you that will make you so successful that I don't think a lot of people teach. He was the only one that I ever had heard that. So I don't read, I fully read the books, but a lot of the times when I'm reading, I'm taking action on stuff, at least like 20 or 30 things from that book, like by the time I've read it, by the time I finish.
So you're kind of like reading for concepts?
For actions, for actual like things, like where, it might be anything from something email marketing wise, or something from how to set up your Instagram account, or how to talk to your team, how to give bonuses to your team, whatever. There's always something that will pop up in your head and go, oh, that's a great idea, I should do that. And that's when you go and do it.
What's on Dean's reading list?
Oh, jeez. Oh, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That one's a really good one. That is by Mark Manson. That one's really good. That helped me a lot with letting things go. But that's not necessarily a business book. That's more of like, but that's one of those things that you take action on. Like within the first chapter, I was already like doing stuff with that, where I'm like, oh, okay, it doesn't mean that you're not caring. It means that you just don't care about like there's certain things that you can, like, it's like, I don't know if you do any Zen Buddhist type stuff. It's like things like that aren't, like, you don't get emotionally wrapped in things and stuff. And so I started thinking about like, what am I emotionally wrapped in? And like immediately start practicing. Of course, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. There's the talent code right there. 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. That one is really cool. That's another one where you can read each chapter by itself. That helped me be a really good leader. These are the laws that politicians and kings use, and I was already doing some of the stuff. I just didn't realize that that's what was there. If you want to have power over people, it sounds morbid. If you want to have power over people, that is a book that you need to read, and especially in business, because business is war. You and I are doing business together right now. That does not mean that it's always going to be like that. That does not mean that you'll do something that, because you have your kingdom, I have my kingdom. Sometimes we're allied, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're at war with each other. It sucks when it happens, but stuff like that happens, right? Think of our one friend who, was like, cool, well, ally, I'm going to help you. I want you build you up, and then he didn't live up to his side of the thing. So then it was like, boom, there is no treaties between us now anymore. We'll be friends, but not in business. In business, we're enemies. In business, there's no, like, I see you as a threat now, business-wise. Your employees, they want to do a good job for you, and I care about every single one of my employees, every single one. I love every single one, and I want what's best for every single one. But when you are in charge of hundreds, you'll know, and you'll find that some employees will literally slit your throat if it meant that they got a benefit out of it. And it sounds mean and cruel, but I literally, with one of the guys that I just fired recently, he he tried to take down my entire company, and try to turn people against me. And had it not been for that book right there, probably it might have happened, or at least a lot worse would have happened. But the 48 Laws of Power is really good because gives you different tactics and strategies and stuff to be a good leader. And this is for if you're running a coffee shop, or if you're running a political campaign, if you're running anything that has to do with power and over other people. It's the book to read. So like one of the things that's like my favorite, there's always a bunch, but one is I've always been natural with this, but I didn't realize this was one of them, is being unpredictable. Like when people under you know what you're gonna do, they start to get really comfortable and think that they can play you, or they can usurp your authority and stuff like that. This goes with contractors, this goes with anybody. You might publicly chastise someone out of the blue because of something that they did privately, and all of a sudden now everyone's like, oh crap, like maybe he'll do that to me. And then but then 2 weeks later you might publicly praise somebody. You might, like, there's certain things that I'll do that keep my guys on their toes. Sometimes he'll give us a big benefit. Sometimes he won't. Trying to think of another example. So like with the guy recently that we fired, it was a long time coming. I actually wanted to let him go earlier, but one of my advisors basically said, let's see if things change. He brought something up in a way that was like very just, he brought something up that could have made it to where a lot of people mutinied. And so my way of being unpredictable was, so he basically brought up two people who wanted like significant pay increases, and it was like unreasonable. And the way he said it was like, basically like, if you don't do this, they're gonna leave. They're threatening to leave. And it came out of the blue, like, and it was one of those things where he had been doing a lot of different shady things too, so he was probably getting something out of it in some fashion or another. And so I just said, oh, if that's so he was doing it privately, so I brought it public, and I said, well, he brought that publicly. Sorry, yeah, he brought that publicly. And so then I actually just said, great, let those people go. I want you to personally let them go. And he's like, oh well, I'm sorry. And I said, no, you said what you said, let them go. He said, oh, they weren't threatening, they weren't like, that's not what they really wanted. And I said, no, you let them go. And I was serious, like, let them go. And I said, either you let them go or you lose your job. And so then he tried to bring it into the private and say, hey, and whatever. And I brought it back to the public, and I said, all right, you either let them go or we're done. You're done. Long story short, he didn't let them go, which I didn't want them to be let go anyway. I think they were innocent bystanders to something that he was doing and trying to benefit from. And so then I just fired him, just terminated him, took away all his access, everything like that. And then he wrote this big long thing to all of the other team, basically saying like how bad I was as a leader, how this, he had always, like, all this stuff basically that, yeah. And I just responded, thanks. That's it. I just said thanks. His expectation was that, you know, I'll either say yes or no. Not that. And then everyone else onlooking is like, holy crap, like what is going on? It brings back authority, you know, and it shows that like I said, I care about every single one of them. And part of it, that like unpredictability was like, I do not want thousands of people, like literally thousands, because if I have 100 people working for me, I have their families too. So it's thousands of people who are depending on me. And because of one guy trying to benefit in some fashion or another and hurt the company, I'm not going to let that happen. Kidding me? So part of it was that's part of the unpredictability was like, then screw you. Like, you want to go this way, we're going to play a completely different game. And then now everybody else knows what could possibly happen, you know? So that book has gotten me I've gotten a lot of benefit out of that book, big time. So, but yeah, there's a bunch of other, I don't know. So yeah, go to systemizing5.com, go to prosulum.com, and subscribe, like, smash that subscribe button.
Hit the bell.
Hit the bell, all that stuff. All right, I love you guys.